Welcome to module number 5. In this module, we are going to be discussing Copilot in Excel. So we are going to learn how to extract insights from our data using Copilot in Excel spreadsheets. Now, when we talk about Copilot in Excel, we are going to be talking about getting the insights of those specific documents that you created. So I have my data, I want to take the analytics, I want to summarize this data, I want to have a conversation with my data. And with that, I also want to be able to go deep into it. I want to be able to create my pivot tables. I want to be able to also access the advanced analytics in Excel. All of that using Copilot. Now, when you look at this conversation that I'm going to have with Excel, it's going to help me highlight my data. So when I have my table, I can summarize, I can suggest formulas, I can also extract specific insights, and I can ask Copilot to suggest specific approaches to get to the data that I need. Maybe I have a column that has 5 or 6 rows, and I need to add additional ones. I can simply say add additional ones to complete that. Or I have specific rows in specific columns, and I can ask Copilot, what additional columns do you suggest that enhances my data? That is also possible. This analytics of the content and also suggestions on how to add additional content into my data. So first, let's talk about simplifying, or in this case, simplifying the process of summarization your data in Excel. Before anything else, it's important for us to know that there is one critical requirement. First, that your data must be in a table format in order to be worked on efficiently by Copilot. At the same time, you must ensure that you have saved your content in OneDrive or SharePoint. Those are the basic requirements we are going to have. If I create a spreadsheet and I want to start working, sorting, filtering, highlighting, I need to ensure that the data is available there. Now, if I want to be able to work with Excel, imagine that I have this sales data, I am a sales manager, I have all of this data content. I want to be able to quickly identify top performing, top products, top sales, top market. I can ask that conversation from Copilot. Sort the sales data in a particular format, maybe revenue, for example, by region, or the lowest performing product by region, by market, by vendor. I can select that. I can also sort this maybe customer list that I have. I can sort based on product. There are many sorting capabilities. I can simply ask Copilot to do that. I can also filter on that data. Maybe instead of trying to create a formula, I can simply say, I want you to filter this, go back and look for the last 6 months, look at anything that is less than X value, for example. I can filter based on employee list, which of my vendors have the biggest margin. I can also look at the inventory. There are many ways for us to get to the insights of this data, helping you. That's what Copilot is there to do. Also highlighting the key points on this data. I do have some very valuable data on my analytics, and now I want to be able to highlight top values, lower values. I can select that and highlight. The cells can be highlighted in various colors, the same way that we do when we work with Excel, making it really visible what you were working on your data. Now, one other thing that I can do this in terms of analysis and visualization. I have my data, and now I want to be able to improve my productivity by looking at deep into this. So I can try specific prompts that helps me do this. I can say which of these products, sells best in California or in a particular region of the world. What is the best way? Which of these widgets have the best margin on a particular sector? I can do that as well. So there are many ways for me to ask Copilot to bring the insights of this data. Now, one of the things we're going to notice there is using the text as well. The text, what do you mean text, Elias? That's right. If I have text in a column, I can very well have this conversation with Copilot, interpret the text and summarization text in that column. Supposedly you have feedback from customers that are text. I can analyze this text as well. Submit prompts that are going to be analyzed and summarized, and maybe extract specific insights from this data. Maybe on column D, I have a large number of text and I want to say, give me the list of all the cities, all the individuals, all the locations, products, regions. That may be various areas that you want to do. Not only that, we're going to see that later, but also it highlights specific context for us. Maybe there's a project update that I want to be able to do. Maybe inside of those columns, I'll be able to extract. Now, what about formulas, right? I want to be able to create a formula to do something. Well, there are two ways. You can ask Copilot to create those formulas. It is going to remember that. It's going to create those formulas for you. Or you can ask it to simply execute. When I am working on my data, on my spreadsheet, and I tell Copilot, I want to be able to do this, summarize this column, it can give me the formula, and at the same time, it can say, hey, insert that or create that. It will create additional pivot tables or additional data sets, in this case, sheets for me, and put my data in there. And this is very popular of what is going to happen when you ask for advanced analytics. Now, what about asking Copilot to calculate specific values? Perfect. Now I do have that. I have a formula. Maybe I want to calculate the total sales for a particular month, for example. I want to be able to find averages, find best product based on sales quarters, for example. I can retrieve all of that, retrieve prices from a particular product, above, below, percentage rate. It is very easy to be able to do it. So I can present that prompt with Copilot. I can enhance that prompt, and I can also say, maybe I want to get a particular content in a particular format and then display that, right? So there are many ways for me to begin extracting this content from Excel. Now, what about creating custom functions as well? Yes, I can do that because Copilot, particular Copilot for Excel, really understand and those customizations that I want to be able to do. I have a custom function I want to be able to do. It will be able to extract that. I want to be able to create a custom function to, let's say, calculate the total revenue for a particular area from a particular month based on number of sales and average sales. I can give the details to Copilot and it will be able to insert that. So I can visualize the data, I can customize the output of my data, and I can generate new data content based on the conversation that I have with Copilot, like editing, for example, my custom functions. I will be able to do that. This is something we're going to try in a couple of minutes as well. And I did mention about creating and visualizing the data. One of the most powerful ways that you're going to see this is the pivot tables. Every time I ask for a particular way to visualize my data in Copilot, it will create another pivot table and will be able to show us that content. Allows us to customize that. I can drag this and visualize the content based on rows and columns and the values. Very similar to what we do today, but much easier because now, instead of having to go create the formulas and try to figure out, just have a conversation with Copilot, your personal assistant, to be able to help you do that. And you can try a lot of these prompts. As I mentioned before, we are going to mention later the prompt gallery, where we have a large number of these example prompts that we can try. So now that we have discussed the capability of Copilot in Excel, let's dive in. Let's take a look at how this works in real life. Here we are in Excel, and we are going to begin to use Copilot in Excel. Notice on the top right-hand corner, I have Copilot button. And I'm going to start by asking Copilot to help me build a data set to work with. But notice here, I did mention that in order to work with Copilot, I need to make sure that the data is auto-saved. In order to do that, I need to put this data in my OneDrive. So let's go ahead and say, yes, I want to auto-save this. And it says, oh, you want to put this on your drive? Yes, let's put this on my OneDrive. And it's going to be called Demo MS-4018. Perfect. So this is the name of my document, and I have saved it in my OneDrive. So that means that now I can begin to work with the data. First thing I'm going to ask ask Copilot. Notice that I have no data in this spreadsheet. That means I can start just like anything else. I can start from scratch. I'm going to say, Copilot. Well, I'm not going to even say Copilot. I'm going to say, please create a data set representing my, let's say, yearly sales with year, month, totals, products, and quantities, and any other columns you believe are critical. All right, let's see what Copilot is going to do. So Copilot is thinking about what exactly I asked. I said, create a sample data set. That means I will populate with some values into that. I will create columns for year, month, and product, and sales, and so forth. And then it's going to also think about additional items, which I don't know exactly what they look like. We are going to learn right now. So once Copilot is done, it suggested a couple things. First, it says, listen, based on your request, I see you have year, month, product. I also find unit price, region, and sales. And this is your sample table. Do you like it? Do you want to keep it? I say, I love it. Insert that in my spreadsheet. And also, Copilot relies on tables. So it already created a table for me. So there it is. I have my January to December product, and I have the year is 2025. I have the sample quantity sold. Now I can begin to ask Copilot, sort based on, let me see, quantities sold. Sort based on quantities sold. So it's going to look at the columns that it has in there, and it's going to say, oh, in order for me to do quantity sold, I need to look at a particular column in there, A1 to A9. I found quantity sold, and I'm going to say apply to that. And there it is. So it's sorted based on quantities, and it's sorted ascending. I could have said sort descending as well. I just said sort ascending. Let's ask Copilot, highlight the, let me see, the highest, I'm going to say the total, highlight the highest total sales in red. Let's say highlight the higher total sales in red. So you should be able to look at the total sales column and highlight the one with the most in red. There it is. Top one, apply. If I like what the results, I'm going to say apply it, and it's going to highlight in red. There it is. So it says that the total sales is the month of April, and it is highlighted. Now, let's say I want to be able to enhance my data. I can ask Copilot to, can you suggest any other columns to make this data more insightful? Can you suggest any additional columns to make this data more insightful? And Copilot may look at it and say, well, you have product, you have month, you have total sales. Maybe there is some ratio in there. Maybe there is some profit margin that we can calculate, right? It says the total product, maybe a profit margin. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's add profit margin on that one. But again, the profit margin here is quite low for each one of those, but at least now I have a profit margin that I can use. So I can begin to see that not only Copilot can begin to enhance my data, create content, but also I can begin to ask for insights. Show me insights of my data. Notice that I have some pre-configured prompts that I can use for that as well. Now, Copilot is evaluating my content and is going to then create some insights from me. So this is going to include graph and potential views of how my data is categorized. Let's take a look. The data insights show a summary. Okay. Can you visualize this? Can you create a graph? Can you provide a graphical view? A graphical or a graph of these insights. Can you give me a graph of these insights as well? So now Copilot is going to look at the formulas and see what do I need to do to create a graphical view to represent this data. So here's a pivot. We did mention about creating pivots. There we go. So do you want to add this to the sheet? I'm going to say yes. So it should be able to create a pivot table. Here is sheet number 2. So you create a pivot table to show me the regions, east, north, west, and south, and I have the total by that region. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Let's open up an existing Excel spreadsheet with a lot more data and do some work with that data. I have the Contoso Chai company. So this gives me the total chai sales. I have the Asian market. I have a lot of opportunities in here. And I want to have a conversation with this data with Copilot. I have a couple sample prompts that I'll be able to use. First, I'm going to ask Copilot, are there any outliers in my data? Are there any outliers in my data? Let's see what Copilot's going to say. Are there any outliers? Now it's evaluating the entire spreadsheet, and then it's going to see if there are any outliers that should be considered. Finishing up. And it says, yes, there are some outliers in your data, particularly social media engagement. Notice here the views on 7:30. See the pivot chart. Would you like to see this pivot chart? Yes, I do. So let's go ahead and add this pivot chart to see, and there it is. So it was able to create a pivot chart that outlines all the sales on a particular from a particular time frame, and then it finds a particular condition, right? A deep dive analysis on this table. Now, what about looking for the top sales product on this? So I have a prompt in here that says, I'm looking for the top selling product for the first quarter. I wonder if Copilot is able to do that. Now, this spreadsheet has specific month and specific year. So Copilot needs to figure out what a quarter is, and then is going to be able to look for the formula to be able to give us that value. And here it is. There's the formula that is suggested, the total sales for the quarter number 1. So there are many ways for us to identify. So Copilot is going to either build us the content, or if I simply say, give me a formula, I can select that formula. What if I say, can you make this in a visual or a graphical format? Make this in a graphical format. Now, Copilot needs to figure out, how do I select this content, create a pivot table, and then provide this in a graphical format? Let's see if it's able to do that. Oh, I can't create a graph. I can only tell you what it is. All right. I would love to start the insights using Copilot, using Python, but I don't have the license right now. But here says, add that to the spreadsheet. Do I want to do this? Yes, I do. And here's the graph. But it's only one graph to represent that value. But still, I have my graph representing that total sales. Awesome. Now, what about another one? I had a question in here related to the highlights of these sales. So if I go back to my spreadsheet, I can ask another question from Copilot. Are there are there any highlights in this data that I should consider related to, are there any highlights we consider related to the, which region do I want? Let's pick one of the regions. Related to the pre-made chai sales. Related to pre-made chai sales. Let's see if it's going to be able to find out. Are there any specific highlights that I need to be considered when it talks to the pre-made chai sales? So Copilot is going to look at its analytical format and then be able to see if there's anything that we should take in consideration. Oh, yes, the average pre-made unit by the date shows the function. January, February, December. See the pivot table. Let's take a look. So we do have some insights. Perfect. I have that insight. So there's the average sales that continue to increase, picked up a little bit on the last quarter. I like that. So this gives us some perspective of how I can use Copilot. Now, before we leave the Excel, I want to point out that because I use Copilot, you notice that I can start a new conversation with my Copilot. At the same time, down here, notice that I can add images to my conversation. I can upload images to this presentation, similar to what I did in Word and Excel. Also, view prompts. This is important. I did mention before about the prompt gallery. So when I click on this and say view prompts, this will open up Copilot prompt gallery. We'll talk more about this later. But in the prompt gallery, I will be able to click see all prompts, and then I can filter based on a particular Microsoft 365 tool. For example, we are discussing Excel, so I can filter specifically on Excel and see what type of prompts I could use against my data. So here's the app, and I will select Excel, and I see that I have a number of prompts that I can use. What does this formula do? Maybe you have a formula that you want to analyze, but you don't know exactly what it means. I can do that. It's almost like reverse engineering. Not only I can ask Copilot to create a formula, but if I have a formula, I can ask Copilot to describe it for me. Set up data validation, explain analytics techniques. There are many prompts that you can try from the prompt gallery as well. And going back into Excel, also notice on the bottom here, I have this @ sign. Every time you click on the @ sign, it allows you to also look for, let's click on that one. If you have specific agents that you have created, maybe you have created an agent that will take a particular content from a particular data set and do certain things, automate that. When we talk about the prompts, you'll be able to relate to this prompt. But I can call specific agents and also enhance my data with those agents, enhance my capability. And here says, you can also connect to the internet. So right now, we are talking to my data internally, but I can also bring in some knowledge from the outside to be able to work on this on my data. And finally, this is the execution, right? Anytime I see this button means I can execute my content. I hope this was able to give you a general overview of how to work with Copilot in Excel. Now, let's go back to our presentation, summarize this section, and then start the discussion with Microsoft Chat. Now that we have had an example of how Copilot works in Excel, we discussed the insights of the data, how it easily can build your pivot tables, can analyze formulas, can identify trends in your data. It is your time to do that. In this exercise that we created, first, you are going to explore the data that you have. You're going to analyze, you're going to enhance that data. Then you're going to identify sales trends in your data. Next, you are going to compare products. Maybe I have a particular product sales and another one. I want to see which is the best based on specific conditions. Then you're going to calculate the total sales for that, and you're going to analyze, talk about the social media engagement, which ones of them has the better approach to that. And finally, we are going to generate insights of the data. And if you want, this is optional as well, send your insights to the team. So these are things that you're going to learn how to do from your Excel. Now, you notice one thing in here. We talked about sending content to resources. Now, if I go back to Excel, you notice that I said send in there, and I have this slash that says you can look for people, you can look for content. That's what this sending is. I can say, okay, now generate or create an email for this person, and you can set the name of the person, and Copilot is going to generate or draft that email that you can send to that person. Okay? So we're going to see this later when we discuss Copilot Chat as well. With that, this brings us to the end of our module. In this module, we were able to validate Excel. And to ensure, to basically emphasize our knowledge, we have a knowledge check where we are going to try this, right? So you're going to use Excel to create multiple choice questions for you to try and to understand Excel. So it's going to explain functioning as a Microsoft 365 Copilot expert, ask you 3 multiple choice questions. And as we mentioned before, you can increase the number of questions, increase the difficulty, tell exactly the Excel functions, maybe additional things you want to discuss, insights, present all the questions at once or one question at a time, and then wait for you to respond, provide the correct answer. And if you said one question at a time, ask additional questions as well. So a great way for you to learn is leveraging these real-time quizzes. I particularly love them. And this, as I mentioned, brings us to the end of our module on Excel. In this module, we were able to provide you with a powerful tool to analyze the data. So Copilot in Excel provides you that perspective of your data, advanced analytics, accessing formulas, accessing your content, analyzing your tables, see what else can be added or how to analyze deep down and provide insights to your content. Also, display, visualize the insights of the data in pivot tables or other charts that you want. And also generate formulas. We saw that. Not only can I generate formulas to get what I want, but I can also bring a formula and say, describe this, right? Is there a similar formula that I can use to accomplish the same? And there is advanced analytics that you can also execute with Python. With that, team, I hope you enjoyed this section and you are looking forward to using Excel on a regular basis to extract insights from your data.